I was reading. This is a clause. It's a clause because it contains a subject, who or what it is about, I, and the verb group, what the subject was doing, was reading. This is an independent clause because it makes sense by itself. It's also known as a simple sentence. I was eating an apple. This is also an independent clause. It has a subject, I was eating, and it's got another colour in it. It's got the object, what I was eating, an apple. Still a simple sentence and an independent clause because it makes sense by itself. Now we're beginning to get into the types of sentences that have more than one clause. So as you can see, the two clauses here have been joined with the conjunction and, also known as a connective. So it has two independent clauses, I was reading and I was eating an apple, and those two independent clauses are joined by and, but the independent clauses would make sense by themselves. We can also join two independent clauses with other coordinating conjunctions, and boys for and nor, but or yet. So here are some other examples. I was reading, but I was bored. So we've got a clause, I was reading, another independent clause, I was bored. They're connected with the connective, but. I was reading, but I was bored. Or another example, coordinating conjunctions. So, I was reading, so I didn't watch TV. I was reading is an independent clause, would make sense by itself. I didn't watch TV. Another independent clause, it would make sense by itself. When it gets tricky is when we get up to the subordinating conjunctions instead of the coordinating conjunctions. When we join clauses with a subordinating conjunction, we make a complex sentence, then we have an independent clause and a dependent clause. So for example, I was reading because it helps me to relax. I was reading is an independent clause, just like up here. Now this is where it is a bit different to these earlier sentences, which are compound sentences. These ones are complex sentences, which are joined with subordinating conjunctions. They are included as part of the clause. So this one here, because it helps me to relax, that would not make sense by itself. So it is called a dependent clause. It depends on this clause for it to make sense. Now I know you're thinking exactly what I used to always wonder, why on earth is the conjunction included as part of the clause here, but here it is not. Well, the way I think of it is that you can move this clause to the start of the sentence, and that's why it is stuck to it. So because it is part of that clause, because it can move around, which these ones can't. Because it helps me to relax, I was reading. So we still have this clause, which came from here, and this clause, which came from here. It is still a complex sentence, still has an independent clause and a dependent clause. Similarly, we have another complex sentence down here. I was reading, that's an independent clause still. When the bell went, that's a dependent clause, and we can change it to have the dependent clause at the start. When the bell went, I was reading. So we still have a dependent clause and an independent clause.